Hello, everyone. In this video, you'll hear both my reaction to the statements by Harvey and Donna during the sentencing of Donna Adelson, plus Ruth Markel's written reaction to those statements. Obviously, Ruth has spent some time thinking about it and wrote an eloquent statement that I'll read to you. I just gave you my impromptu thoughts. I may have missed some of the thoughts that I've had over the last few days, but I think that the core of my thoughts about it is included in my portion of this video. So here we go. We'll start with Ruth and then we'll do mine. Now, I did my statement before I ever read Ruth's reactions. You'll see some things that actually match. Here we go.
Very serious.
I'm also going to read the statement by Ruth Markel in response and in reaction to the statements by Harvey and Donna at the sentencing. Here we go. This is me reading what Ruth wrote. During sentencing, our family listened in disbelief to the disrespectful and delusional statements made by both Donna and Harvey Adelson before Donna's sentencing for the first-degree murder and other convictions of our son and brother, Dan Markel. Contrary to Donna's claims, she never mourned the loss of Danny's life, nor did she ever express concern for his sons losing their father. Testimony at her trial showed her callous indifference to his murder, including written evidence that she dismissed the very idea that the boys could be sad or miss their dad. It is deeply unfortunate that Harvey used his time before the court to challenge our family's account of our relationship with Ben and Lincoln. We will set the record straight, as we have in court and elsewhere. Our family was cut off from contact with the boys for 6 full years, from the moment authorities implicated Adelson family members in Danny's murder until 1 hour after the Florida legislature passed the Markel Act. Since then, our interactions have been limited, mainly through Wendy's supervised Zoom calls and short visits. Wendy refuses to share their address, and gifts that we send must be mailed to her lawyer's office. We were uninvited to Benjamin's bar mitzvah following Charlie's arrest, and never invited to Lincoln's. We grieve the years lost and the years ahead without independent and direct contact with them. Beyond her crimes, Donna scorned Danny, drove deliberate wedges between him and Wendy, and despaired him to his own sons. Her display of emotion before the court was not remorse for Danny's death, but sorrow for the consequences she now faces for causing it. We thank the court, prosecutors, jurors, and law enforcement for their steadfast commitment to bringing justice to Donna Adelson for her role in this terrible crime. Signed by Ruth Markel. Excellent observations, as always, by Ruth. Thanks, Ruth, for sharing this with me. Hello, everyone. This is Mentour Lawyer, and I wanted to share on the outrage that has been going on about the statements given by Donna and Harvey Adelson in the middle of the sentencing of Donna Adelson. First, it was Harvey, and then it was Donna. And starting with Harvey, right? What is the main message? Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you can just lie in court. That's his claim. And then he proceeds to only give one example, which is mistaken, right? He says that the Markels lied about the fact that they hadn't seen the Dan Markel boys, right? The Dan Markel and Wendy Adelson boys for many years. And of course, they never said that. They actually said the opposite. They said that for some time they couldn't see the boys, and then eventually Wendy relented and allowed them to see them on a limited basis on her own terms. So she didn't say well, let's say Ruth or Phil didn't say that they couldn't see the boys at all. They said exactly what happened, right? So at first they were able to see them. Then when Ruth sent that email to the prosecutor about where to put the children in 2016 or so, where to put the children temporarily if Wendy's arrested, Wendy gets a hold of that, and then she refuses to let the Dan Markel's parents to see the kids. And then eventually, especially with all the backlash from that, a couple of years later, after one or two trials, Wendy relents and starts to let them see the boys, but not as much. And that, even if it was a lie, let's put it this way, even if there was a lie, for example, if when Ruth gave her victim impact statement, which I think Phil had to correct a little bit about when which uh, celebration of the boys they could or could not attend. Even if there was a misstatement in that portion, that wasn't the trial. That wasn't what got Donna Adelson convicted. So he couldn't come up with any example. And then if you actually look at the reality is that Donna lied when she testified in her bond hearing about the reasons for going to Vietnam pretty clearly. She obviously was trying to put witnesses on the witness stand that were going to lie for her in exchange for compensation. She got caught in that, and the state was able to show that there was an active effort from the Adelsons, including Harvey, to hire witnesses to lie about Katie. And then finally, of course, Wendy Adelson, their own daughter, testified at various trials, and she has been caught in many statements that many people consider to be outright lies. And obviously, there's a lot of things that Wendy says that directly conflict what Jeffrey Lacasse says. And in every trial, the jurors seem to believe Lacasse and not believe Wendy Adelson when it comes to those statements. So, of course, some of them was lying, and of course, you can lie in court, and that's what the jury is there to try to figure out who's lying, who's telling the truth. So, ridiculous statement by Harvey. Next, you have Donna. And of course, there's a lot of things about what Donna said. All the self-serving statements, uh, saying about how wonderful Dan Markel was, right? And of course, two observations about Donna Adelson. Number one, we saw at the trial how involved she was in the divorce proceedings, engaged in every motion that was filed and any response that was filed by Dan Markel, in participating in the writing and editing, right? And then we saw a lot of ridiculous arguments being presented by the defense team during her trial. And by listening to her statement, which sounded almost like a closing argument until she got interrupted by Judge Everett, you can tell that a lot of the themes that the defense presented in the trial must have originated from Donna Adelson. That seems pretty clear to me from her statement to the court. Those theories, right, trying to portray to the jury how Donna Adelson had gotten over the whole issue about moving, the fact that there was no evidence of her involvement, that she wanted Dan Markel dead, the fact that she actually liked Dan Markel and appreciated him and would never have wanted him dead. All those things are themes that we saw the defense present, especially in opening statement, which fell flat, of course, when you see all the other evidence. And it definitely must have come from her. She wanted to push this theme at her trial, and it failed. And what a couple of things I wanted to say about her statement. So, like, number one, the thing that I thought, I guess, as I was thinking about it the most, is how easy it was for her to say good things about Dan Markel after she got him killed, right? There's no doubt in my mind that They thought about those boys. They loved those boys. I'm talking about the Adelsons who were involved in the murder of Dan Markel. And of course, after Dan Markel was dead, after the problem was solved, because Dan Markel was a problem when he prevented Wendy from moving to South Florida with those kids, when he was insisting on certain things about how the boys should be raised that was against what the Adelsons wanted. When that problem was solved through his murder that they wanted and they got done, then it's easy to love Dan Markel. It's easy to have a picture of Dan Markel on the side of the bed and then have the boys every night say goodnight to Abba and probably tell him a lot of wonderful things about their dad because they care about those boys and they want the boys to think that Dan Markel was a wonderful guy, that their father was wonderful. So I don't doubt the truthfulness of that part of the statement. I don't doubt that they were trying to push in the minds of those boys that Dan Markel was a good guy and that all the different things that they did to sort of erase Dan Markel, like changing the names and stuff, were all done with an excuse that could be given to the boys, right, for their safety and so on and so forth. And there's no doubt that um, these statements by Harvey and by Donna, they were not really directed at anyone other than those two boys and their loved ones and their friends who supported them. That's who they were talking to. Because you know what? In the court system, when you talk like that, when you denigrate a judge, you're like on his face, you call him a biased judge. Okay, when you say all those nasty things about the whole system, the jury, the venue, so on and so forth, and you're just trashing everybody, which is what the Adelsons did. You're not winning any favors. You're not going to get any sympathy from the appellate court. Okay, when it's senseless attacks, most of them were false. She had accepted the jury, for example. She had accepted the jury that she knows. I think everyone who was picked for the jury had no knowledge about this case. So why is she talking about venue and all this stuff? She didn't even object. She accepted the jury. She didn't like the result, but she accepted the jury when they were picked. Wouldn't have made any difference, South Florida. These were good people. They had no influence from any media, and they listened to the evidence. And just like Judge Evers said, it's pretty clear that Donna was involved, right? So, all those self-serving statements about the fact that Donna was innocent, about the fact that she was convicted for a crime that she didn't commit, about the fact that there was no evidence of her desire for Dan Markel to be dead, any evidence from before the murder. Of course, there was all this evidence about payment. That was the state's theory, right? That she obviously wanted it done, that Charles Adelson was the problem solver, that there's a long history of that there was communications between Donna and Charles about this issue. And then, of course, the main evidence was that then she helped pay for it, not only on the night of the shooting, but also afterwards by writing those checks. Even if the money technically came from Charlie, if Charlie was involved in the murder, I mean, why would he get his mom involved, right? I mean, they all just thought that they got away with this. They put her on the payroll. They never thought that anyone could make a connection to Katie because they thought the killer was her ex. And even if somehow in the future the ex was caught, he would never tell on Katie. So they thought that they were scot-free. They put her on the payroll and she writes the checks. And by the way, she is trash talking Dan Markel early on, including to Sarah Yusuf, as we heard from, of what she said in her deposition. So a pretty ridiculous statement from Donna and from Harvey. Statements from Donna and Harvey that I think properly angered most people who watched them, that were self-serving and that were really directed at those two boys because they want to save face and they want those two boys that they truly love in their sixth sense, because if they really actually love those boys, they would never have been involved in taking those boys' father from this earth. But they obviously care for the boys, right? I mean, She took over as the dad instead of Dan Markel. She was serving the role, primarily Donna, taking care of the boys when the mom wasn't available, and I'm sure she wasn't available much at all. So, yeah, of course, they have a lot of love for those boys in their sick way, and they don't want those boys to ever believe their grandma killed their sunshine's father. And that's what the speeches were about. It was about saving face. They got convicted by evidence, but they will die claiming innocence, proclaiming their innocence, and saying that they had nothing to do with this. And everyone else is at fault, but not them, right?
It's fine. Right there in front of the lectern.
Watch your step. You have your step back.
If you please can identify yourself for the record.
Yes, my name is Ruth Markel.
That way, 'cause you're
Sorry?
I'm worried you're gonna trip. Just
Okay,
that's
I already did. Oh. My name is Ruth Markel.
You may give your impact statement, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge Everett. To the Honorable Judge Everett, my name is Ruth Markel. I am the mother of the late Dan Markel. I stand before you today to express the profound sadness and grief that Dan's family and I have endured since his tragic murder. We have lost a treasure. My son Dan's life was cut tragically short at 41 years old. For 11 years, we have been forced to a life filled with unimaginable pain and heartbreak. Dan's father Phil and his sister Shelley share in this unending sorrow. Dan was a devoted father, brother, and son. Dan's life was marked by his devotion to family, education, and community. He was a loving, caring, and inspiring person. His academic journey included studying politics and philosophy at Harvard University, earning a master's degree later in political theory from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Emmanuel College in Cambridge, and later going back to Harvard to get a law degree. Dan was a prolific scholar and did start, co-founded the influential Prof's blog. His energy, drive, and sociability greatly enriched the FSU College of Law. Dan's life was filled with passion, music, dance, sports, travel, and people. But of all my son's accomplishments, however, I am most proud of the devoted father Danny was to his two sons, Benjamin and Lincoln. Dan was present, loving, and supportive, always putting his children's well-being first. He regularly attended the boys' daycares, reading with them. His office was filled with their drawings, and his home, his living room, filled with their toys. Dan was the boys' hero, and they have been forced to grow up without a father. Dan's murder has shattered our family and caused deep, permanent pain. This was a particularly senseless crime, and the murder was particularly insensible. It was not revenge. Dan was a law-abiding and respectful citizen, an active father, and a living son. His life was devoted to teaching and helping others. The pain and suffering of Dan's murder goes well beyond other families too. That is why I wrote the book, The Unveiling, a mother's reflection on murder, grief, and trial life. In my unrelenting grief, I turned to advocacy, to feel purpose, and to help others with these tragic losses. I have found meaning and comfort to connect with others who want to serve justice. To all the community of journalists, TV programs, podcasters, Tallahassee communities, and the allies who have put their hearts in keeping Danny's story alive, we are full of thanks. To law enforcement and prosecutors, our gratitude is beyond for their dedicated, careful perseverance in seeking justice for Danny and our family. If Tallahassee is known for football, Tallahassee should be known for the prosecution and for law enforcement. They have done an outstanding job. These extraordinary efforts underscore the brutal truth of our family's story. Danny's murder was orchestrated by his former mother-in-law, Donna Adelson, and other co-conspirators, and is a crime of cruelty. It is a murder of grief, a murder of selfishly prioritizing one's own desires over what is just or right. And at its core, this was a murder of convenience, so that one grandmother could live closer to her grandchildren. She killed their father and ripped the children from the other grandparents' lives. Donna Adelson's crimes against Dan began long before his murder. She belittled Dan in front of his children. She spread lies about it and contributed to a brutal separation between Dan and Wendy. She rented the house, and Dan came home, and he found that Wendy and the boys were gone with most of their belongings. He called this devastation Pearl Harbor. Donna's eagerness for Wendy to divorce Dan and to relocate to South Florida led her to increasingly devise desperate schemes. Despite these efforts, the court ruled that Wendy could not move the boys away from their loving father. Failing to achieve her goal through legal means, Donna finally resorted to orchestrating Dan's murder. She plotted, planned, and paid for his murder. Donna's crimes led to further devastation. Her middle son, Charlie, was convicted and sentenced to a life in prison for his role in facilitating Danny's murder for hire. Can you imagine a mother involving a son to complete a murder? Donna's eldest son, Rob, an honest and decent man, is estranged from the family, and her younger child, Wendy, has decided once again to relocate to another state. Her actions and those of her co-conspirators have caused children to lose their parents. Catherine McBanowitz, Freda Garcia, and Charlie Adelson, also convicted, are all convicted for life and have lost access to their children. Prior to her arrest, Donna's recorded phone calls with Charlie reveal their lack of a moral compass or capacity for self-reflection. She blames external forces for her family's curse. They're outside of her, but she is the curse, and lashes out angrily at witnesses who took the brave step to testify. Her modus operandi has always been to run from Tallahassee and then to try to flee to Vietnam. For our family, there is no such prospect for escape. Danny's absence, and that leaves a hole at the center of our lives, no matter where we go. Yet Dan's murder was not enough for Donna. His death was not enough. Danny had to be fully erased from his beloved sons. The boy's last name was ever changed, an extraordinary decision to excise the Markel name from Phil's only grandsons who shared his last name. And after the first arrests were made, Donna didn't allow the Markel family to have access for over 6 years. It was only when there was a phenomenal Tallahassee advocacy group that passed the Markel Act. The passage of this bill was immediately followed by our first invitation to see the boys after the arrest. The door only cracked open. Despite these efforts, we remain excluded from the boys' lives. We were not at their bar mitzvahs or graduations. We have extremely highly choreographed visits and communications. We only wait for the day that Benjamin and Lincoln will visit their father and his grave in his father's history and his grave in Toronto. We want nothing more. The facts of Danny's murder, are difficult to swallow. The experiences Phil, Shelley, and I have been forced to suffer are profound as homicide survivors and victims of the criminal system. The lives of Danny's two sons, our grandchildren, were forever turned upside down by this crime. Benjamin and Lincoln were only preschoolers when their father was murdered, and now they are forced to confront and try to understand the unthinkable crimes of murder and the Adelsons' involvement. Our lives will never return to normal. For those who loved Danny and for those who Danny loved, there is no escape from the wicked effects of what Donna Adelson set in motion, carried out, and paid for, and for many years enjoyed the aftermath of. Donna Adelson has caused immense devastation and an untimely, undeserved murder through her actions. While no trial or verdict can ever heal the profound wounds caused by Dan's murder, justice must be served. I respectfully ask the court to impose the maximum sentence on Donna Adelson. Her lack of cooperation and remorse throughout the case demands justice, the justice that Dan's life and memory fully deserve. We are immensely grateful to the court for its careful and compassionate deliberation. Respectively, Ruth Markel.
Thank you, Ms. Markel. Are there any other victim impact statements this evening? If you please could tell us your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Phil Markel. I'm Danny's father. Judge Everett, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the impact of Donna Adelson's actions on my families and the families of so many others. While this victim impact statement is addressed to you, Your Honor, it is also intended for the Adelson family, Harvey, Charlie, Wendy, and particularly Donna. I would like them to understand and reflect on the deep and irreparable damage they have caused. The pain that they have caused my family is obvious and permanent, but they have also caused lifelong harm to their own immediate family and so many other families and children around. Donna's selfishness, cruelty, and complete disrespect for human life, along with that of her co-conspirators, have left families forever broken. Louis Rivera, his children have no father. Catherine Magbanoa and Sigfredo Garcia, their children have no parents. Charlie Adelson, his son, Roman, has no father. Rob Adelson and his wife and their two children have lost their uncle and grandparents. Shelley and Ian, my daughter, their three children, my grandchildren, are left without an uncle and are separated from their cousins. Of course, their heinous and callous actions have left me, Ruth, and Shelley without our Danny, and Ben and Lincoln without their father. For anyone to commit such a cold-blooded, unprovoked act of murder is horrific. For Donna, someone who claims to care so much about Ben and Lincoln, her sun shines. Her actions are beyond comprehension. She has harmed forever the people she claims to have loved. In the Jewish custom, we have an expression to always wish others to live to 120 years of age. For Donna, I wish her to live to 120, alone in her jail cell. I wish that every day of her remaining days she thinks about the harm she has caused to so many, especially those 2 boys she claims to have loved so much. For these reasons, Your Honor, I ask the court sentence Donna Adelson to the maximum possible sentence. And my only short question to Donna, was it worth it? Respectfully, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Markel. Are there any other matters that the court needs to address this evening, Ms. Koppelman? With the PSI being ordered.
Harvey and Donna showed their anger in the courthouse about this whole process, about the injustice being done to Donna Adelson.
This time, I believe that Mrs. Adelson's husband, Harvey Adelson, would like to address the court.
Very well. Do you wish to enter these letters into evidence?
Yes, Judge.
Does the state have any objection?
Your Honor.
They will be composite defense 1 for sentencing.
Thank you, Judge.
Dr. Adelson, please raise your hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
You can lower your hand. You may speak.
Thank you, Judge, and respected officers of the court for allowing me to speak. I have been Donna Adelson's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mine. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and social media.
Doctor, Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant or at least the sentencing.
May I have just one moment, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, Judge.
Just 1 second, please. Just 1 second, please.
All right, thank you for letting me continue. Donna did not participate in the heinous acts that she was convicted of doing. You are sending an innocent woman to prison. You have taken my wife and you have taken my life as well. And for what? This is not justice. It is vengeance, and it is wrong.
Do you have an examination for Dr. Adelson?
No, Your Honor. No, Judge.
Any other witness statements that you would?
We don't have any further witnesses, Judge, but Mrs. Adelson has decided she would like to make an unsworn statement to the court.
Unsworn?
Yes, Judge.
Seeing in the case where it does state the defendant has a right to make an unsworn statement, we will proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would you like Mrs. Adelson at the lectern or up here?
She can remain at council table.
Thank you. I'm going to move the microphone. I need to speak loudly because this is not amplified.
Okay. Is this loud enough, Judge?
I can hear you.
Thank you for letting me speak. My son-in-law, Dan Markel, was a fine and decent man. He was well educated and passionate about his career. He was a good son-in-law, but more importantly, he was a caring and loving father. On July 18th, 2014, his car was followed, leaving his home. It should have been just like any other day, an ordinary day in the life of Ben and Lincoln's father, but it wasn't. He didn't know when he left his boys off at daycare that would be the last time he would see them, and the last time they would see him. He didn't know when he went to the gym afterwards that would be the last time he would exercise. And he didn't know when he drove home that his life would end within minutes. Danny wasn't just being followed, he was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." But pictures and memories are all they have because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died. My grandsons were going to grow up without the father who loved them. I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive. It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanaw's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue,
That
Mrs.
revealed-
Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act? Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop, to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt. Many months ago, my attorneys filed a motion for a change of venue. An expert witness testified that Tallahassee had been barraged with over 9 years of negative social media, printed news, television news, and podcast publicity about my family. He explained to the court, both with evidence and demonstratives, that for me to receive a fair trial, it needed to be held in any of the researched and designated areas in the state of Florida other than Tallahassee. All I wanted was a level playing field, but the court wanted the trial here, in the hotbed of Tallahassee. I sat through 3 days of jury selection. 180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, "I believe she is guilty." Not one person, not one, said, "I think she may be innocent." That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue. But the court denied the motion. One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances, which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Greg, just one moment, please.
Turn that phone off or step out. Please.
What happened to Danny is unforgivable. But I am an innocent woman convicted of this terrible crime without evidence. Danny was a brilliant legal scholar. He would have been appalled at the total lack of justice that went on during my trial. He would have been embarrassed to have his name associated with any of it. There are two crimes here. The first was Danny being viciously murdered. The second one is taking my life, the life of an innocent woman. Convicting me should not be retribution for Danny's death. That is not justice for Dan. I've always respected the law. I've never gotten a parking ticket, but I'm going to prison for a murder I did not commit. I do intend to file an appeal so that hopefully I have the opportunity to be given a fair trial outside of Tallahassee. 11 years ago, Danny was murdered and taken from all of us who loves him. For the past 9.5 years, the state has broadcast to the world, including Danny's parents and sister, that I hired hitmen to kill him. Never in a million years would I have wanted Danny to be harmed or killed, nor could I ever do something that would leave these two small boys to grow up without him. I love these boys more than life itself. This is a lifetime of loss for these children. They didn't deserve this. His family didn't deserve this. Danny didn't deserve this. And so, as I appear before you today, Your Honor, I promise you with my whole heart, I swear to you on my life, I was not involved in any way with Danny's murder. I was not.
Defense have any further argument to make?
Yes, Judge.
Judge, before Ms. Fulton makes the argument, I want to address a comment that the court made a few moments ago concerning considering lack of remorse in fashioning a sentence. Shepherd v. State 227 Southern 3rd 746, the First District Court of Appeal held that lack of remorse cannot be considered in fashioning an appropriate sentence. If this were a situation where remorse and admission of guilt may be grounds for mitigation, the lack of these factors cannot be used to increase the defendant's sentence, and such reliance violates the defendant's due process rights. And they also rely on Ritter v. State 885 Southern 2nd 413, also a first DCA case.
I believe the Supreme Court has ruled on this issue concerning remorse and lack of showing remorse as well. If you need me to find the citation for you, I will.
Yes, please.
We'll take a 10-minute break. Gentlemen, were you able to review Davis?
Briefly, Your Honor, Davis was not a capital case. This is a capital case. Although the criminal punishment code would only apply to the non-capital cases, I would like to submit to Your Honor that it is distinguishable under those circumstances.
Going to read from Head Note 8 and 9. Nor was Davis forced to choose between allocution and maintenance of his innocence. He certainly could have allocuted without voicing his disagreement with the verdict, blaming the driver, the police, his lawyer, the trial court for his conviction, and attempting to explain his personal interpretations of the law to the judge. He could have asked for leniency without admitting guilt. He could have provided the judge with reasons to impose a sentence less than the maximum besides his claimed innocence. But he instead chose to make a lengthy statement claiming innocence, denying responsibility, and placing blame for his conviction on the alleged misconduct of others. The trial court was under no obligation to ignore such statements and did not err in considering those statements and imposing the legal sentence here. Do you have anything that distinguishes Davis in any way? Having reviewed the cases presented by the defense concerning the downward departure, also as well the argument that has been presented, the court has reviewed its notes of the trial and will rule on the issue of downward departure at this point. Florida Supreme Court has a two-part test concerning whether a downward departure should be granted or could be granted by the trial court. The first is whether the trial court can impose a downward departure sentence based on a valid legal ground proven by a preponderance of the evidence. The second step is whether the trial court decides whether it should impose the downward departure based on the totality of the circumstances. As to both the non-statutory grounds that have been argued and the grounds contained within section 921.0026, subsection 2, subsection B, in reviewing the trial court's notes, what has been argued by both the defense and also as well the court's relying on the record itself, court will find that there is a ground for non-statutory downward departure, but it declines to exercise its discretion. As to the statutory ground, I will find that both the defendant was an accomplice to the offense and a relative minor participant in the criminal conduct. We'll find that has not been proven, but in addition to, the court would still decline to exercise its discretion. As to the sentence in this matter, Ms. Adelson, please rise. Level of planning and coordination to bring the murder of Professor Markel to fruition was significant in this case. These were not crimes of chance or opportunity, and these crimes also required you to conspire with your son and others. You certainly can choose to deny your involvement and maintain innocence. The court finds the evidence in this case is clear. You will be sentenced accordingly this afternoon. The jury has found you guilty on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder, and the court previously adjudicated you guilty as to these same charges on September 4th of this year. On count 1 of the indictment for first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or release pursuant to sections 782.04 and 775.082 sub 1 sub A Florida statutes. On count 2 of the indictment, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, you are hereby sentenced to 30 years in the Department of Corrections that will run consecutive to count 1. The court will also sentence you to 30 years in the Department of Corrections on count 3. Counts 2 and 3 are to run concurrent with each other, but consecutive to count 1. As to the fees and costs, the clerk can please announce those at this time.
Hey, I'm JC. I was one of the jurors in the Donna Adelson trial, and now I'm here as a host on the channel, Deep Dive True Crime. In this series, we're going to bring you special cuts from the Donna Adelson trial. These are shorter videos where we improve the video quality and the sounds and cut out those silent moments that hold no significance. I am so excited about being a host on this channel and doing a deeper dive into the Dan Markel murder with all of you.
Anyway, we'll continue covering the case as always, especially if there is any development. And we do not know if there is going to be any further developments in the case, but all we want is for the justice system to work the way it's supposed to. And so far, it has been slow, but it has. It has gotten a few convictions. Everyone charged has been convicted so far. So let's keep an eye on what happens next. Thanks for watching. Mentour Lawyer, Deep Dive True Crime.
Deep, very serious.